Like, that's me. I'm all this. That's fine. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten and we are doing a bit of a book unhaul. This is getting harder and harder every time I do one of these, and I think this is going to be my last one for a little while. Everything else that I have on my shelves are books that I either really want to read or books that I really enjoyed and so don't want to get rid of. So let's get into this. Oh, I will start off by saying all these books tend to go to charity shops or family members, and I am filming this a wee bit before this is actually going live, so if you are interested in any of these books, I know I get a couple of comments every so often. I can't promise that these books are actually going to be here anymore. That disclaimer out the way, let's get into the books. The first stack is the paperback editions of Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Now I'm not getting rid of these books because I don't like them. I'm getting rid of them because I have the beautiful hardbacks, the new hardbacks that got printed, and these editions I have had since they were all first released. So they're old, they're battered, they've been through a heck of a lot, and I'm very excited that I have replaced them all with all the hardbacks. I bought the whole complete set and I'm so happy that I did. And I just don't need 2 sets of this book on here because it's not like I'm gonna not read out of the hardback books. Like, I am, as I'm filming this, currently reading and annotating Throne of Glass out of the hardback edition. I'm going to be getting rid of these, the original covers and everything. I know some people are going to be devastated, but I prefer the new covers and I'm really happy with the hardbacks. But we have The Assassin's Blade. This is a collection of short stories from this world, which is following Selena, and we have 4 short stories in here. I always recommend reading this after the 3rd book, but it is a prequel, so you can read it first if you want to. We then have the first book, which is Throne of Glass, and I love this. As I'm currently reading it, I'm seeing how silly it is and how full of herself Selena is, how petty, but I really still enjoy this book. Like, it's good fun. These, I would say the first 3 books, so this one, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, these first 3 books are very much your YA trope-filled fantasy books. Very much. The 3rd book does start expanding from there, but definitely these 2 are very YA trope-filled, a bit ridiculous, and Selena is a bit frustrating at times. I mean, don't get me wrong, these covers are nice, but I so prefer the new ones. And popping these in a charity shop for someone else to enjoy the series. It's a really popular series, it's been around for a long time. And then, as I say, the 3rd book is Heir of Fire, and then I would recommend reading Assassin's Blade after this one. Then we have Queen of Shadows, and it's from this book that the world explodes and gets really massive in terms of plot development, in terms of the characters and the things that are going on. I think it then gets a lot bigger. Still, you can argue YA fantasy. I would reckon it starts getting a bit older though, but I do enjoy it. Clearly, I've said that. And then we have Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, which, look at the foiling on this, it's absolutely falling apart. Another reason why I'm very pleased I have the new covers. Tower of Dawn and Kingdom of Ash, you can do a tandem read. I haven't done that before, so I will definitely be doing it. Published, it was Tower of Dawn first, then Kingdom of Ash, but I'm very excited to read these 2 together next time, as I'm currently doing my read through of the series. That is what I'm going to be doing with these books. Very, very excited to do that. So I'm literally going to be reading chapter of this and chapter of this and doing it like that, and I think I'm going to enjoy it so much more. My mum read this whole series. Tower of Dawn was her favourite. Tower of Dawn is my least favourite. I think doing the tandem read is going to be where it's at, and I think I'm really going to enjoy that. But yeah, all of those books, and they're gone just because I've got the nicer hardback versions that I love, and there is no point in these sitting on my shelves collecting dust. We have 2 more stacks of books to get through, so let's do this. Starting off with a couple more books that I'm getting rid of just because I have so many editions. We have The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Both these classics I absolutely love. Both of them I recommend reading, but I already have editions of these books that I prefer. I have both of these books in the English Library editions, and I also have the uncensored version of Dorian Gray. I don't need multiple editions of the exact same book. I am trying to stop doing that. A couple of editions I adore, so like Jane Eyre I've got like 4 copies of. I'm never going to get rid of those, but these are not my favourite, so they can go. We then have The Lies of Loch Lamora, and this is by Scott Lynch. I picked this book up because of a few people's recommendations. I liked it. This was a charity shop by, it's a grimdark fantasy book, so if you like grimdark, I think that you would like this book 100%. For me, I just prefer Joe Abercrombie's The Blade Itself, and if I'm going to want a reread of a dark grim fantasy, I'm going to reread The Blade Itself over Lies of Locke Lamora. I do think it's a good book, and it does have a few loose ends that you could pick up on. However, there's just some bits about this writing style that I didn't quite gel with, and that's just the interludes that you get. I feel like they kind of got a bit pointless and did a lot of like info dumping on the world, which didn't really need. So for me, I would rather carry on with the First Law trilogy and all of those books instead of this one. But I would recommend if you do like your darker fantasy, I do think that works for it. We then have Mina and the Undead by Amy McCall. I liked this when I was reading it. I would never reread it, and I don't feel inclined to pick up the next book. This is a book kind of a Dracula retelling that's a bit more like Buffy the Vampire Slayer inspired. It's a fun YA time. Like it's easy, it doesn't take too much concentration, you've got some of the classic tropes in here, and I do think it is a fun time. I just would never reread it. But I recommend, if you like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and horror films and things like that, then I would recommend this one. As much as I liked Buffy and watching it, it's not something that I would read a book about. I would rather just watch it, you know? Another book where I have multiple editions of, we have The Picture of Dorian Gray, again by Oscar Wilde. I got this one for free. You know what, it's a fun cover, but again, I don't need this many copies of the same book. This book unhaul was hard. This was hard work because I really had to be strict on myself and be like, right, I don't need multiple editions of this, which is the majority of these books, or I'm not going to reread this so I can get rid of this. I liked it, but if I'm not going to reread it, I'm not keeping it on my shelves. I was really hard on myself. It needed to be done, especially because I have no space. I needed to make some room. I think there's very few books that I haven't liked out of this pile. Actually, saying that, Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, I didn't really like this book. It's a good classic. I would recommend reading it if you're interested in colonialism, and I just found it a really hard read, and I didn't really enjoy the writing style of this either. Again, this was a charity shop find, but I'm quite happy to give it back to a charity shop and see if anybody else would like it. I'm pleased I read it, but it's not my favourite and it's not one I would reread. A book, again, I loved, but I just don't need multiple copies of, and that is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I really love this cover. Like, I absolutely love it. I think it's really fun. I've not seen these editions before. I picked this up from a charity shop when I was like, you know what, fine, I'll give Jane Austen a try. And then of course I loved her book. I do have a beautiful English library edition which Naomi bought me, and so I don't need this edition. I have the English library, which is the collection of books that I much prefer. So yeah, this one can go. I don't need two of the same book. As much as I did love it, I do prefer the edition that Naomi got me. So yeah, this one can go back to a charity shop. On the vein of having books that I don't need multiple copies of, we have The Thursday Murder Club and The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman. Now, if you saw my original unhaul, I say original, my last unhaul, I was debating about unhauling the hardback versions of the book. Hardbacks take up so much more room. However, I love those hardbacks and I don't want to unhaul them. Like, I love them so much. And so I've decided, you know what? Who cares if these save space? I prefer the hardbacks, so I'm going to go with that. And that's kind of just what I've settled on. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. This is a cozy murder mystery series. We're following 4 people in a retirement home who every Thursday they get together to try and solve cold cases until a murder actually happens at their retirement home. And so they go about trying to solve it. It is so much fun, and these books got me through such a hard time. The beginning of last year where I was feeling really slumpy, really stressed, and these really helped with that. And I have Christina to thank for letting me know about these books because they've been so good. And then we buddy read the 3rd book, we're going to buddy read the 4th book. Like, they're just so much fun. We both really enjoy them, but I have decided to keep the hardback. I will be giving these ones to charity. Oh, okay, so Starfish by Akimi Dawn Bowman. You know what, I don't this has been on my unhaul pile. So what I do for unhaul books, where my bed is, it blocks the last shelves of my bookcase, so I cannot easily get to them. So I save that for my unhaul books. Books that I haven't enjoyed, books that I may not reread, and I keep them there and see if I think about them. So then by the time I come to filming this is like the first time I've seen these books in months. However, this is a book I haven't stopped thinking about, and a book that I don't think I want to unhaul. This is a YA contemporary book, which is not a genre I read really at all, but this one had such an impact on me when I was reading it, and I think I read it like 2 years ago. Do I think I'm going to reread this one? I don't know. Probably not. But this did have such an emotional impact on me. We're following our main character, Kiko, and Kiko is going through a really hard time, and a lot of her experiences I really connected to, and I found it so hopeful and lovely at the end of this book, and I don't want to get rid of it. So no, that one's not being unhauled. Hopefully that doesn't happen much because I do need the space, but I really did love that book. Finally, I thought, you know what, I'm not going to reread this, it's fine, I can unhaul it, but I think the emotional impact in me, I don't want to get rid of it. Okay, then we have a book I haven't actually read yet, but I don't think I'm going to read, and I don't want to have books on my shelves that I've got that I then am not going to read. I just think that's silly. And this is The Mercies by Karen Millward Hargrave. This is a book I picked up from a charity shop. My mum's read this and she said it was good, but I don't know, every single time I look at my shelves, historical fiction is a genre that I know I like, but I really put off reading. I already have a few big books from that genre that I want to read first and prioritise, so I know this book's not going to get read for at least like 2-3 years, which at that point there's probably going to be new books out that I'm more interested in than this, so it's going to keep getting put off. So instead of doing that, I'm going to unhaul it and get it off my shelves. I'm actually going to see if my mum wants to keep this one because she did like it. Oh, I don't know what this one's about because I haven't read it, but the back it says, we're in 1617. The sea around the remote Norwegian island is thrown into a vicious storm. Oh, all the men of the island perish. And then 18 months later, a sinister figure arrives, has been summoned to bring the women of the island to heel. Or maybe I do want to read that. That does sound really good. I think I just need to actually remember to read the synopsis of this book. I like the sound of that. And I do like Karen Millward Hargrave because I've read another one of her books. So anyway, okay. A book that I am getting rid of is Vladimir by Juliet May Jonas. This is a book that I've read and I liked. I feel really bad about unhauling this one because I really struggled to find this book. That I wanted this particular cover. I don't like the cover of the paperback, and so I went out of my way to get this one, and it turns out that I'm going to unhaul it anyway. I liked the story, but I'm never going to reread it, and it was a bit disappointing. What I wanted from it, I didn't quite get. We're following a teacher. Her husband is involved in a scandal. We've had a lot of women coming forward that are like, you slept with us, you used your position to manipulate us, because they were students. As much as they were of age and adults, they were still students. And you have the wife that knew about all of these affairs, allowed the extramarital affairs, wasn't bothered by them, and she's kind of frustrated at the girls, going, but you knew what you were doing, you had the power, why are you allowing them to belittle you, why are you allowing them to take the power of your choice away? So it was a really interesting perspective. It definitely gets you to question a lot of things, but I don't think I would reread it. And then we're seeing this teacher who then becomes obsessed with another teacher who again is a lot younger than her, and you're seeing how that obsession and desire can twist. I think this is a really good like book club pick because it will really get you to question things, and I think it will bring up a lot of topics for you to talk about, especially with the wife and how she stands with the girls that are coming forward against her husband. So I do think for a talking point it's really good, but I just wouldn't reread it. And then we have The Silence of the Bones, and this is by June Hur, and this is a historical fiction mystery book, and I did like this one. This is set in Korea, in 1800 Korea, so you get a lot about what life was like then, the way that women were treated, how they couldn't do certain things. We're following a main character, and she is working with the police force because when they find women that have been murdered, men are not allowed to touch them, so the women have to be assistants to do everything that they need to as part of a criminal investigation. And so you're seeing this murder investigation take place. I think it was interesting. Parts of this book I didn't really like, but I really enjoyed the look into Korea at this time, especially the segregation that was going on between North and South, the violence that was going on. I thought all of that was really well done, but I'm never going to reread this. I read this a few years ago and I've not thought about picking it back up. So yeah, I'm gonna unhaul this and let somebody else enjoy it, but I do love this cover. I thought that was really stunning. Another book that I just didn't really enjoy, that's Argo by Mark Knowles. I've just filmed a Greek mythology retelling video where I go more in depth, but this is about Jason and the Argonauts. This first book is him going to a place where he's going to steal the Golden Fleece. I just didn't get on with this one. I found it really boring. I didn't like the fact that we had all the mythology elements taken out of this book, and yeah, it just wasn't for me. Okay, then we have a manga which I did enjoy, but I'm just not going to continue, so there's no point keeping the first volume, and that's Black Tort. It's fun, it's silly. I just don't think I'm going to reread this, and I'm not going to continue on the story. Since I read it, I haven't thought about reading it again. So if I haven't thought about it and I don't want to continue the series, there's no point keeping this one. I would recommend if you want a light, fun manga. Then we have Hex by Jenny Fagan. Again, I liked this book, but I didn't love it. I know so many more people have loved this book, and I think that this would make someone really happy to find in a charity shop. This is a witchy book, and it's talking about how witch trials were used as an excuse to get rid of women. Whether they're just too outspoken, their husbands just don't want them anymore and they want to marry somebody else, or things like this. They're the way that the men used witch trials to persecute women for different reasons, and how horrendous that was. I liked it for that. I thought it was really hard, really harrowing, but I do think someone else is going to get more out of this than what I would, especially because I don't think I'm going to reread it. It's one of those ones that I think about and I question whether I do want to get rid of it, because I think on reread I would prefer it. At the same time, I do remember when I was reading this that the points that this book make, very important. Considering how short it is, I don't need it repeated that many times, and that's what really put me off. I love the themes of this book, but I don't love the execution of the writing of it, because I just think it was repeated too many times for such a tiny little book. I'm going to put this one in charity shop. I'm sure it'll make somebody very happy. We then have Thomas Hardy's Stories and Poems. I haven't read this one, but I don't think I'm going to, because I'm not a poetry person. There are select poems that I will read, and that is the Greek myths, because they're done in poetry format. I don't have any other option. Otherwise, I don't get on with poems. I just don't. And I love Thomas Hardy as an author, but I think I just want to stick to his novels. I tried doing a flick through of some of the poems. I just can't get on with it. And it's something that I always struggled at with school as well. Like, English literature was one of my favourite classes. I always did really well of it until it came to the poetry section, and then it would be my downfall, because I could not understand it. I could not wrap my head around it. I couldn't understand how to pull it apart. And so I would be like this really like strong student for everything else, and then poetry would just drag my grade down because I could never do it. And it's also what put me off doing English literature at university, because I really thought that I was not smart enough to do the poem part of it, because I just couldn't. Do I regret that? Partly, yes, but I also love the fact that I read whatever the hell I want to read all the time, and that's all I wanted from that class anyway, so not that you needed that side tangent, but yeah, I just poetry is not my thing, so I'm gonna give that one back to a charity shop. Oh, another book that I like, served its purpose really well, but I'm not gonna reread, and that's The Last Girl by Goldie Moldovisky, or if you're in America, it's the Mary Shelley Club. This is a book that focuses a lot on horror movies, so if you like horror movies, I'd recommend this. It's a YA thriller, and I do think it was a lot of fun. This was exactly what I needed at the time for something mindless and didn't have to concentrate too much on the plot lines of this all. It was a wee bit predictable, but it was fun. They talk a lot about horror movies though, and I am a certified wuss and will not sit for a horror film. I will rather hide. Like, that's me. I'm a wuss. That's fine. But yeah, so when they were doing all their discussions about different horror films, I could not relate to that at all, and I think if you liked horror films, you would be able to relate to this a lot better. Like I said, it was a fun time and it did what I needed it to do at the time. Every so often you need that. You need a book that just is mindless, easygoing, gets you through it, breaks up your current reads. You're not ever gonna reread it, but that's fine. Another manga, again, volume 1 of Blue Exorcist, I liked. It was fun. I'm not going to continue on with the series though. This one I remember a bit more about. This one is the son of the devil that's been brought up by an exorcist. I think it is going to be quite a hilarious series. When I read this, I liked it, and I even said during that 24-hour readathon that I'm not going to continue on with this series, but I had a fun time reading it, and so unhaul. Oh, another book that I have multiple editions of is The Sign of the Four by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I love this. I love this old vintage style so much. but I already have this in the English Library edition. I don't need an edition just to collect. I just don't, and I'm really trying to convince myself of these things, so it's going. I love the cover, love the story. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, it's a Sherlock Holmes story, it's all good fun, but I have the English Library edition and I don't need multiple books of the same story. Okay, a book that I actually really didn't enjoy, that's The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. This was a buddy read with Christina. I DNF'd it. I couldn't get on with it. This is an adult thriller. Did sound really interesting, but I didn't like the way it was done. I thought a lot of the scenes in this were a bit pointless and were put in there for shock value more than anything else. Christina did actually finish this whole book. She's done a whole review. I'll have her channel linked below. But yeah, I'm never going to pick this back up again, and I don't keep DNFs, so no thank you. Acts of Desperation by Megan Nolan. Again, this is a bit like Vladimir. I liked this book, but I'm never going to reread it. I think if I was 10 years younger, even 5, I would have connected to this book so much more. It shows you the difficulties, obsession with love, being stuck in a situation that you don't want to be stuck in, feeling like you've got no escape, the toxicity of it all. It is really good, and I think this is really good. Like those videos that go around on TikTok, like you should read these in your 20s. Yes, I agree. That's what I find with a lot of contemporary books. Like I like reading them, but I wouldn't reread them and keep them. And the only one that's been an exception so far for adult contemporary is Normal People. I really enjoyed that book. I thought it was really well done. Wakenhurst by Michelle Paver. I read this a little while ago actually, and yeah, I was just a bit disappointed. Didn't really love this one as much as I thought. I thought I was going to adore this one. I thought it was a really good gothic book. Just didn't quite hold up for me, unfortunately. All I really remember about this book is the fact that there was loads of religion in it, and it just wasn't for me. We then have a book that I haven't read yet, but I don't think I'm going to get to anytime soon, and that's Six Tudor Queens by Alison Weir. I'm not that bothered about this book because they're in charity shops all the time, so if I change my mind and I want to read it, great. But I already have a Tudor historical fiction book that I want to read that I've been putting off for ages, so I've kept that one, and instead I'm going to get rid of this one. This one is about Catherine of Aragon, and it's all to do with the Tudor queens, and we have a series for each book for the different queens, and I was really excited because I do love the Tudor time period. I particularly love the stories around Anne Boleyn. Kind of out of that phase. I will get it every so often, once in a blue moon, where I want to read historical fiction about the Tudors, and considering I've already got a book sitting there for when that mood eventually crops back up again. I didn't even pay for this one, I got it for free, so I don't need this one on my shelves. I found it in a free library, and I think it can just go back to one because for now I'm not going to be reading it for at least a few years, so no point. Kind of the same with 10,000 Doors of January. This is by Alex E. Harrow. My mum read this one. I can't remember if she liked it or not. I really can't remember. I'll ask her if she wants to keep this one. Originally bought it, and then my mum read it first because she was intrigued. Got it because of all the hype that was around it, but I'm never gonna read it. I can never think about it. I always forget it's there. Even looking at the synopsis of this, out of like the Mercies, which again, similar situation my mum read, I would rather read the Mercies. So yeah, I'm gonna see if my mum wants to keep it. If not, that will go to a charity shop. And this one is following January in this gothic mansion, and then she finds a strange book that tells of secret doors, and for the first time January realizes she can escape her story and sneak into someone else's. It sounds okay. Yeah, we'll see if my mum wants that one. And then we have The Binding, and this is by Bridget Collins. Again, I found this in like one of those library things. Really cool because of the sprayed edges. My mum also got a copy of the same book. She picked it up from a charity shop, I think. I don't know. If I want to read it, I think I would just borrow my mum's. I don't need a copy on my shelf that I'm not feeling the need to read. This one is about bookbinding, which is why I'm impressed, like why I was intrigued. We're following Emmett, and his job is to handcraft beautiful books, and within each to capture something unique, which is a memory. So if you've got something you want to forget, a secret to hide, he can bind it away for you. And then he makes an astonishing discovery. One of the volumes has his name on it. It's meant to be really gothic. I don't know, I think I'm going to talk to my mum again about what she thought about this book, whether she thinks it's worth a read. I can't remember. I think I would honestly rather just borrow her one. I'll see if she wants the purple sprayed edge one instead, but yeah, I think otherwise this one can go and I'll just borrow my mum's version. The very last book, again, is a book I haven't read, and that's The Other Queen by Philippa Gregory. Again, I was really interested in historical fiction. I was picking all these up from like charity shops and things, so I didn't spend loads of money on these. I think this is another free library, and this one is about Mary, Queen of Scots. And again, I was really intrigued at the time, but even at the time when I saw this, I knew I wouldn't be reading it soon, and I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to pick up books that I know I'm going to be reading soon, rather than books that I know it's going to take me years to get to. And again, this is an easy one that if I want to read it in the future, they're easy to find in charity shops. Philippa Gregory does a lot of books around different queens from our past. She is the one that wrote The Other Boleyn Girl, which I really like, so I've still got that one, but I just haven't felt the need to pick up any others, as I've been saying for these books lately, trying to clear off my shelves. So there we go, that is all the books that I am unhauling, and like I say, I think it's going to be a long time before I do another one. I really am happy with all the books that are on my shelves right now. Obviously if I read a book and I DNF it, I will get rid of that one, but otherwise there is nothing on my shelves now, having gone through them several times, that I'm like, I don't want to keep this anymore. It's actually the opposite case. I had a couple more books in this pile that as I was taking them out, I had to talk about for Greek mythology, the video that I did for that, and one of them was the Penelopiad, and I was thinking about getting rid of that, and instead I decided to keep it because I was like, you know what, it may not be my favourite Greek myth, but I think I would reread it eventually, and I did enjoy that storyline, so I kept it. And like these two, I think I'll keep these because it's just getting harder. Anyway, that's it for this video, so thank you so much for putting up with me rambling for so long. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know if you do unhauls. I know some people really struggle to do an unhaul, but I've moved so many times that unhauls become really easy for me in making sure that my shelves only keep books that I really do like or I really want to read. Move-in house books, like if you've done it, you know how hard that is. So I've got really used to being able to do an unhaul, which is why it was so interesting that this one was so much harder to do. But I think just because the collection that I have now got is just perfect. But yeah, okay, well, that is everything. I think for this video, we'll just do a stack of books in the emoji for the comments below. If you've made it this far, just pop a stack of books because there is a lot of books and I've made a mess on my floor. We're gonna leave it there. So thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please do give it that thumbs up, subscribe and comment. Those three things are so helpful to helping this channel grow. Anyone that I've mentioned and my social media links will all be linked below, and yeah, that's it. So thank you so much, and I will catch you in the next video.